Hi everyone! Today we're going to show you how to configure UniFi zone-based firewall to work with Spotipo servers. If you're using an older version of the firewall, please check our guide on Spotipo site or check out the older firewall guide that we have on the YouTube channel as well. But let's start with the zone-based firewall. First, you need to go to Settings and under Policy Engine find the Zones button. Once here, you need to locate the network that your captive portal will be using. In our case, it's pretty simple since we created a separate network for captive portal only, and it's listed under the zone name of hotspot. However, if you won't be creating a separate network for your captive portal, and you plan on using your guest SSID on the same network as your internal traffic, then you'll probably need to use the default network, which is located in the internal zone. Both of these cases can work, but we are creating a different rule for each of these, so keep that in mind while watching this video. Since we have a captive portal network in our hotspot zone, we're going to use that, but you can configure it with the default network or any other network that you'd like. Just make sure that you're configuring the rules for the correct zone. So, to create the rule, scroll down to the bottom of the firewall rules and click on the Create Policy button. Now the screen on the right hand side will pop up. Right, now that we are zoomed in, we simply need to name the rule. We're going to use something like Spotipo allow. Under source zone, now this is the most important step and it's the one I've been talking about for the past minute now. So you're going to need to select the source zone. If you are like me using a separate network for the captive portal, then you're going to select the hotspot zone. However, if you're still using a default network or some other network that's using internal zone, then keep it at internal. But in our case, we're using hotspot zone. Now, since we don't want to allow any address to access it, we will use the specific IPs only used by Spotipo servers to keep things more secure. So simply click on the IP and click on the list. And now we need to create a new IP list, which will contain all the addresses that Spotipo uses. Simply click on the new, and the new screen will pop up in the center of the screen, where you need to input the addresses. Name it whatever you'd like. We're going to use Spotipo servers so that we know what it's used for. And under addresses, add the following ones. These will also be in the description of the video so that you don't have to type them out. Now that the addresses are added, simply create the rule by clicking the Create button. And now we'll move on to the Create Policy screen. So here, make sure that the Spotipo server is selected under the source zone and the correct list, and leave the port as any. Under Action, by default it's set to block, but we need to set it to allow. Next up is the destination zone, and we need to keep it at gateway. And that's all the stuff that needs to be changed. The rest of the rules can be left on at default, and all that's left to do is click on the Add Policy button. If you've created everything successfully, you'll see the Spotipo allow rule created in your policy list. Now make sure that the action is set to allow and that the correct source zone and correct source list have been used. If everything is set up correctly, you can now communicate with the Spotipo servers and there shouldn't be any more issues preventing you from setting things up. However, if you're still having issues, please contact us on our email address support@spotipo.com or via chat on our Spotipo site. Thanks for watching and goodbye.